You're listening to episode number 35 of the Indie Film Tribe podcast with me, your host, Angela Matamocha. Welcome. Hi there, good people. Hi. Angela Matamocha here with Indie Film Tribe. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited about this conversation. We are speaking with a fantastic, multi-talented lady. She is a mother, first and foremost. She is also an actor, a producer, and a writer. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Claire McClanahan. Hi. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Angela.
You know what? I think you're the first person that I introduced that is a mother that I actually brought mother into the introduction. So, not that I haven't introduced mothers before, but just because of what we're going to talk about today, I just thought that is first and foremost. Is that accurate? You being a mom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that I'm the first person you introduce like that. Yeah, I mean, being a mom is all pervasive, whether you want it to be or not. So I'm quite happy to be introduced that way.
Ah, and how many kids do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind at all. I have one. Her name is Riley. She is almost 4, and she is a pip.
Ah, that's a great name, Riley. So she'll
Thanks.
be what, in kindergarten next year?
Well, she misses the cutoff, so she actually has to be in preschool for another 2 years.
Oh, interesting. So when
Yeah,
she goes to kindergarten, is she going to be 5 or 6?
she'll be 6.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know. But we try, there's pros and cons to it all, so we're feeling fine about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had a girlfriend that had a similar situation happen where it was again the cutoff. So now she's, I believe, in 7th grade, but she is a year older than everybody else. But my friend loves it because, of course, she wants to keep her like young for as long as possible.
Yeah. Well, when we first felt a little bit disappointed that we were going to have to wait to put her into kindergarten, we were like, well, she'll be the first one to get her driver's license. She'll be like so cool, when she's older.
Totally. All right, so let us jump right in. For people that are listening, one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to Claire today is, obviously she's a mom, and I think, we as, content creators, whether we're writers, actors, directors, many of us women are mothers. So I just wanted to have an open and honest conversation about what that is like for you and how to juggle all of these things because, as I'm sure you're going to speak on, Claire, it's not so easy, or is it? I don't know. Tell us. What are your biggest challenges?
Well, and I first just want to say thank you so much for having me on for that reason, like that being kind of at the forefront, because as a content creator, as a producer, and as an actor, but really, really, especially as a producer, that is a huge passion of mine, is finding ways to support moms in the industry, and women, and, women over 40, like all of that kind of stuff is really, really coursing through my blood. So I really appreciate having this opportunity. I think, when you were setting up the question, I think it's in some ways harder, but as you were saying it, it occurred to me that in a way, it's easier being a mom doing all of this because it really adds a lot of clarity to where you want to put your focus.
I bet.
It's so I guess I'll start with that. I mean, I have had this idea for a film for a long time, and it wasn't until I had my kid that I really put rubber to the road and have been, unstoppable in getting it
Interesting.
all done. Yeah. And what it was is I once I had her and I'm in the hospital and I'm looking at her and I'm falling in love with this new baby, I, of course, felt all of those really, really powerful feelings of I want her to do everything. I want her to be empowered and I want her to feel like she can achieve everything. And it very, very clearly came to me that I can't say that to her until I walk the walk. And part of walking the walk is making this movie. So I'm deeply motivated by that. I want her to know that, yeah, you can do whatever you want. You have to work hard. It's not going to be easy, but you have to work hard. And I also want to be an example to her and to anyone else who needs it that there's no time limit. I feel like there's a lot of focus and well deserved and it's good focus, but I feel like there's a lot of focus on young and up and coming filmmakers, and there's less of a focus on filmmakers who may be making their first feature films after the age of 40, or they may be writing their first feature films, or they, who may be making these things wherever they decide to put themselves in the industry when they're not in their 20s. And I think those journeys, those stories, and those experiences and those projects are just as valid. And I think it's important to see others who are doing that, so that if you are someone out there who wants to make a movie and you're not in your 20s, I want there to be I want them to see that reflected back. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes absolute sense. And it's so interesting because in a lot of these sort of film festival competitions and even writing competitions, they really focus on up and coming. And they'll use that in their languaging, or like young filmmakers or
Right.
new filmmakers. And a lot of times when we hear new filmmakers, it feels like they mean young. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I definitely know that the industry in general is just geared more towards younger actors, younger filmmakers, all of it, And I'm so glad that you are passionate about speaking about this, because that can be overwhelming if you're just creating your first project after the age of 40, like you said.
Yeah. And it's something that I personally have grappled with a lot. And by talking about it, here and in other interviews, other venues, it has actually kind of helped me to put it to rest a little bit. And I hope that it helps other people. And I know that will especially be so once my movie is in the can and out there on the festival circuit. I know that message will be especially powerful because I will have completed this big step. But worth talking about now too. I wanted to get to the other side of your question though, about being a mom and it being really hard. And I think what's the hardest part about it is I am a filmmaker. I'm also a freelancer. So while being a freelancer and making a film is lovely because I am more in charge of my schedule and projects that I take on, that's great. But I'm not bringing home as much bacon. So I often, and I suspect a lot of moms in the business deal with this, I often deal with a lot of guilt, and feeling like, is making this movie a selfish act? Is it irresponsible for me to be raising a child, but, spending hours and days and weeks and months trying to make a feature film? I mean, a lot of time is put in where no money's coming in. So I think that's an important conversation to have as well, just to commiserate with other moms. And then for all of us to constantly be saying, no, keep going, carry on, make your movies, don't drop out of the industry as soon as you become a mother, because your presence is very, very important.
It really is. And you touched on this word guilt, which I think is so interesting and so natural to feel, obviously. But I feel like as women that are in the workforce, like the quote unquote 9 to 5 workforce, don't get as bad of a rap for working when they first have a child, as opposed to the woman that has a child and is making a movie or being an actor. Somehow
Right.
that's different, right? Or it's perceived different.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, I think in general, moms get a heavy dose of guilt and questioning. So it's hard to split hairs on who might be getting it worse. But when you are in a job that doesn't have a paycheck every 2 weeks, it doesn't have the benefits, where a lot of the job is, and I'm speaking to, being an actor and a filmmaker and all of those positions in the arts, a lot of the job is spending time doing something that does not generate money. It's going to auditions, it's doing emails, meetings, lunch meetings, coffee meetings, like a lot of that, 90% of it is chasing the work. And it's hard, I think, every single day to feel like that is a valid piece of your business. It's a critical piece of your business. But when you've got bills to pay and mouths to feed, it's a little extra challenging to be like, okay, should I go to that audition? Should I go to that meeting? Or should I, I don't know, find another part-time job to bridge the gap? It's a mind.
You can say the F word.
Yeah. It's a mind fuck. It's a major, major mind fuck with lots of peaks and valleys. I hope that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I mean, even for us people that are not mothers, having to weigh that, like, okay, do I go to this audition that could potentially bring in loads of money, right? Because then you think, okay, if I book this gig, well, then these bills are handled for the next, month or two. Or do you keep the part-time job and not go to this potential big, you might get a huge return on this audition. And I think that's the part that keeps us all kind of going. But at the same time, there's a lot to risk, right?
Yeah. And just time spent, like right now I'm in a rewrite that has a bit of a deadline on it. And, so yesterday I was going to go to an audition, but it was like, well, do I spend the time getting on the train, going to the audition, the emotional energy of the audition, or do I stay home and do the rewrite, which has more urgency to it? So yeah, you're right. I mean, it doesn't always, a lot of the times is not even about being a mom. It's about that balance, that gamble.
I definitely think about that as well. And I can only imagine the added pressure of being a mom on top of all of that.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, and I've seen friends who were really active in the industry, and then once they became moms, it was just absolutely cost prohibitive to do it. They couldn't afford childcare because of the inconsistency of the income. Even if they got a job, they would be away from their child for weeks, months at a time, and they weren't making enough on the job to be able to support their kids. So it just breaks my heart seeing these women having to leave their passion, leave what they do, their trade, because it's completely unsustainable. Now, there are organizations that are making that better. There's this fantastic organization. If you haven't heard of them before, you should definitely check them out. They're called Moms in Film, and they're
Is this on the West Coast as well, or is this an East Coast company?
Mostly West Coast, actually. I mean,
really?
Yeah, they have founders on both coasts. They are, totally of the digital age. So there are women everywhere who are working on this company. But they have had presence at film festivals, providing childcare to women at the festivals.
Amazing.
They have this campaign, ongoing campaign called Budget the Baby, which is all about putting money in the budget so women can support themselves and their families. It's a really, really great organization. So there is conversation out there about this, and I feel like its prominence in the dialogue is growing. There's a groundswell around it, so I think it will get better. But I personally want to be a part of that as well, and making it better. And whether that's through bringing awareness to the issue as a producer, trying to budget the baby and find the money that will support, women and moms, but also through telling those stories. I still think there's a lot missing from content, both, digital, TV, and film, where I don't feel like the full experience of motherhood is reflected. It is a very complex life experience that every single woman I know who has gone through it feels gobsmacked by it. And there's no reason for that. There are things that we should all be talking about so that people don't feel so alone, so that they don't feel so surprised by some of the weird things that wait for you once you become a mom. I just think, and that's exciting to me, that there is so much space within the content world to tell these stories. I can't wait to raise financing to tell these stories.
Yeah, so well said, so well put there, Claire. Let me ask you this then. The thing that you're excited about right now, your project, can you speak on that a little bit? Because I feel like it is in alignment with sort of your mission, right?
It is. So the thing I'm most excited, that's most urgent, I guess, is my film Carbon, which is about a woman who has dedicated her entire life to biology. So when her daughter suddenly dies, it's in biology that she finds salvation and hopefully a second chance by attempting to clone her daughter and carry the clone to term. Now, the best part about it, in my opinion, is that this is not a sci-fi film. It sounds like sci-fi, but it's not. It's actually firmly rooted in current science and technology, and it's actually a movie about motherhood. It's about motherhood and loss and love and healing, but it's through the lens of this really provocative science, which is literally just around the corner.
Wow. That's amazing. I have no words.
Thank you. I'm so excited about this film. I had the idea so many years ago, I'm embarrassed to even say.
Don't be. Believe me, you're not the only one. It takes courage sometimes, a lot of times, and years, and getting over self-doubt and getting over so many obstacles, and most of them are here in our heads.
Most of them are here in our heads. But I had the idea before I was even a producer. So once I got a job as a producer and really started to learn the nuts and bolts, then it really started to come together. And then it really fused when I had my daughter. And I was like, oh, okay. First of all, I understand my protagonist, like, way better. And then second of all, I have got to make this movie because my daughter will be like, you are such a liar if I tell her to go for her dreams and I have not done mine. So I'm really excited about it. The script is so tight. I'm making it even tighter. We had a great successful campaign on Seed and Spark. I saw you had Emily Best on your show. I love Seed and Spark. So we raised $16,000 of development funds there. And we have a fabulous investor that we're partnering with right now. So we should have our financing in place in the next few months. And we're going to make this thing, and it's going to be spectacular. I can't wait to show it to people. There's nothing like it.
There is nothing like it. I've never even heard of anything like it. So when you told us what it was about, I'm literally like, wow, like mind blown. I want to speak on something really quick that you just said and I think a lot of our listeners are going to relate to this. You said that this has been in your head for such a long time that it's embarrassing. But then when you started speaking about it, it sounds like it's actually the perfect time, right? Had you started production on it years ago when you first thought of it, you probably would not have been ready. You wouldn't have had your daughter, right?
Right.
You would have not had produced yet, right?
Right.
So I honestly think, I know sometimes it feels like, man, I've had this idea forever, but there's a reason you haven't put it into action. And it sounds like now everything's aligned and boom, it's time.
I totally agree. I think we all have these little conversations in our minds where we're like, well, why aren't I at a particular point when you're looking at other filmmakers? And God knows social media, I love social media, but Lord, does it work on you, right? It does a number on your brain. So it's really hard to keep in mind that everything has its own timeline. So yes, I completely agree with you. It's in so many ways it's happening at the right time. I mean, here's another weird little fun fact about this process. I had the idea probably 3 years before I met my husband, who happens to be a geneticist.
Oh my gosh.
And I promise you, I did not marry this guy because he's a biologist. But just last night, I was having a total freak out as a writer. Like, I don't know if you have those freakouts where you're like, why am I even doing this? And like, I was ready to like bash my computer into a million pieces. I was so frustrated. And I was able to sit there on my couch with an expert helping me through some of the science in my movie. It's really remarkable. It's really cool.
That is outstanding. This is so inspiring for me to hear, and I think for many people that are listening. Claire, I just want to acknowledge you for having the courage and the stick-to-itiveness for continuing on, especially after you had your daughter. What is so interesting about what you said at the beginning of our conversation, you said, once I had her, it sounds like there was a fire lit under you, which I think, and I often hear, is kind of rare. Many women will have their child and think, okay, after they come of a certain age, then I will go ahead and pursue my dream. But it sounds like you just kept one foot in front of the other and just kept going with the writing regardless. Congratulations. That's such a huge feat. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that always makes me laugh about that story is I'm sitting in the hospital. Literally, she was born, 2 days prior. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to finish a draft over maternity leave. I'm going to finish it. And which is so crazy because like now that I know what maternity leave is like those first few months of being a mom, of course it would be someone who had no idea what she was talking about that would set a goal like that. But I did it. I mean, I waited until the very end because I was so consumed with being a mom, but I shoved that thing through. I got a draft done during maternity leave. I have really pushed hard these past 3 years. And yeah, I mean, any filmmaker has to really keep pushing. You hear so many no's and so many reasons to stop.
Yeah, but through maternity leave? And I love what you said earlier, that you don't want to be a liar to your daughter, that you want to be an example. You want to show her what is possible, and in order to do that, you have to lead. That's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it is literally the only thing that gets me going sometimes. Like when I want to give up, I think about her and I'm like, she will not let me live this down. And now that she's really developing that personality, I really know I'm right. If I give up on this film, she will never let me live it down. So
that's awesome. That's great.
I got to make this movie or else my kid's going to just terrorize me.
Oh, I love it. That's such a great spin on what, quote unquote, we're supposed to do after we have a child, That's just beautiful. Let us talk about, if you don't mind, a little bit about your writing process. So you said that during maternity leave, your goal was to push out, pardon the pun, a first draft.
Yeah, well, while I was pregnant, I had started to take, I was taking a screenwriting class. It was kind of an invitation sort of thing where you had to be invited into it, but I worked the system and got in. So I had already kind of started one and was well into it, but like every writer, I kind of fell apart, and especially I was near the end of a pregnancy. So, let's be honest, my body was consumed by an alien at the moment. So I kind of hit the skids on that. But so then I committed to finishing a draft during maternity leave. And it really was, in terms of how I did it, I just pushed who? I mean, I really feel like that's what it comes down to all the time. I hear a lot of writers talk about how they love the process. I have to go on the record and say I don't love the process. Like, there are moments. There are moments
absolutely,
where a character surprises me,
yes,
where something makes me laugh, or like where I hit the zone. But that is really in the minority, I have to say. And if anyone out there hears me say that and they feel that way too, then high five. Let's like just be okay with that. Like, it doesn't have to be an awesome experience. It's hard, but you're driven by something that keeps you going. And to me, it was, I got to tell this story. This is an amazing story with an incredible hook. It's going to be great. Keep going. And now that I'm in this rewrite, it's kind of the same mentality. It's like, look, if I want to lock in this investor and I want to actually get this thing done, I don't have time to sit around and feel sorry for myself. I have to just get words on paper. It just has to happen, right?
And it also sounds like you don't have time if you have this deadline to go on auditions.
I don't. But what's funny is that now auditions are actually super refreshing to me. So if I need something to kind of break up the monotony of like sitting in my house alone, torturing myself through a rewrite, then I'll go and subject myself to an EPA, like an equity principal audition, just to refresh myself. It's kind of funny how auditions have changed now.
Isn't that something? I think writing and producing for actors is such a powerful thing because it kind of puts things in a different perspective,
Yeah.
I know for me it definitely has, when every audition was so precious, and I'm not saying they're not, but my attitude towards them had changed once I started making my own content as well. It's kind of like, gosh, am I going to really focus on this thing that I know I'm in,
Yeah.
that, or do I, it's a funny thing. Let me ask you, are you in your film?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was, yeah, I know, right? Woo! And that's not easy, right? Because people will say, oh, well, that's the lead role, and that it's going to make it harder to sell. It's going to make it harder to distribute. Well, you know what? Go big or go home. I'm like, I wrote it for me, and it took a big year of soul searching and pitching and all of that to come to the conclusion, no, this is my movie. Whoever wants to join the party, come on in. It's going to be awesome. Trust me. And really, the people who do come in and trust you and trust that you can do it are special, special people. Because a lot of folks are going to doubt you along the way. So this is a great sorting hat. Making your own movie that you're going to be in sorts through the clutter.
It really does. And don't you feel that it also really, what's the sort of, doesn't it really, it makes you kind of face your own self-worth, right?
Yes, yes. It forces a big soul search.
Yes, it really does. It really does.
Yeah.
Because you are initially saying to the universe or to the powers that be, what have you, I feel that I am worthy enough, talented enough, good enough to be the star of this movie.
And I did not write myself an easy role. Like, this is not easy. My kid dies. I'm a brilliant scientist and I clone her and I'm just okay with that. Like, it's not easy. None of the roles are easy. But yeah, it really does. And you get these little devils that show up every once in a while that'll be like, are you sure you don't want to just sell it, give it away, it'll be so much easier. And it's so, you can be proud. Selling a script is good. No, if you want to be in your movie, you be in that movie.
Say that again. I love it.
Be in that movie. Be in your movie. Do not give up. Do not do it. And it really makes you be specific too with your decision making. And as a producer of your own thing, it's harder to have the eye of the tiger sometimes because there's emotion involved. It's hard not to take things personally.
Because it is so
it's
personal.
It is. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
Like, let's just forget this don't take it personally thing. It's going to be personal every second, and no one is going to love your project as much as you do. No one. So it's an emotional journey. Move on. So I found that last year when I was having to kind of decide, okay, am I going to sell it? Is that okay? Am I willing to do anything to get this movie made, including sell it? Once you start making those decisions, then you are more specific with your intention and what you're putting out there and what you're trying to do. And honestly, things start to move faster anyway, because the conversations I would have in pitch situations, at a cocktail party or in an office, before I was more specific, it was like, I want this to get this movie made. How? I don't care. If you don't care, no one else is going to care. And if you're not asking for a specific thing, you're going to get lost. You're going to get lost.
Let me ask, when you say asking for a specific thing, is that specific financing? Is it specific? What do you mean by that?
I mean all of it. So when you, when you're talking to somebody who can in some way enhance your project or get your project closer to being made, you're asking that person for a specific reason. Whether you feel empowered enough to verbalize it clearly and strongly to that person's face is another matter. But if you are not able to say, I would like you to come on board as an investor at X dollar level, this is what that would do to get us closer to production. If you can't say that specifically, they're not going to say it.
Right.
Like, they're not going to say it. Or if you're talking to somebody about, would you potentially come on board as an in-kind post-production partner so that I know I've raised that capital? No one is going to come up with the specifics for you, especially if it's a person who's in a position to make a big difference to a project. Either they have experience doing that or they have a lot of means behind them. They're not really going to just say, okay, I'll help you and here is exactly how. No, you have to be the one to lay it down, because you are asking a lot of somebody. You're asking them to take a huge risk. Film is a huge risk,
especially these days.
Yeah, at all levels. In Hollywood, it's a huge risk for them too. Brad Pitt takes him 10 years to get a movie made, So it's a huge gamble. So you have to have the chutzpah to say, this is what I want from you. This is why you need to believe in me. Let's do this. And until you take ownership of what you want your position to be within your own project, those kinds of things are not going to fall in line. You're not going to be able to say the right strong things to someone, and it's not going to come together. At least I don't think so anyway.
No, you're absolutely right. You have to ask for what you want.
Yeah. Right. That is a much simpler way to put it.
No. Having said all that, because there are so many kind of obstacles inwardly and outwardly, what is it that you love about being a writer, a producer, being in the arts? Like, why do you do it? Because obviously this love has got to be strong to keep going.
Yeah. I love making things happen. I love telling stories. I love giving people work. I love it so much. I love finding a project, like right now it's my own project, but I love finding projects that I feel this electric charge about, that this just has to be done, because then it sells itself. And once you get yourself in front of the right people, you can start to get the right resources together. I love bringing a group of people together with a common purpose and making that happen. And then there is nothing like being in the trenches with people who are good folks, who all have this common purpose, working on a creative thing. Like, whether that's a play or a film, a web series, I don't care what it is. There's nothing like that. Being on set in the final days of prep, tech rehearsal, like, there's nothing like that. And those people are your brothers and sisters for life. And you will not see them forever, and then you will. And it's just love. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you are working with people who all love doing these unfathomable acts of creating art. It's crazy town. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves? But we are, and we are critical, and we are important to dialogue and learning and healing and feeling good and escapism and all of it. We are so important. And so working all together like that is one of the most beautiful things in the world. Amen, right?
Amen. Amen. You use this word twice in our conversation so far, Claire, that really resonates with me and art, and that is healing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you think art is a great way to, talk about healing or to reveal ways of healing. I'm a huge fan of that as well in my work. Can you speak on that a little bit about you and healing and in the work that you do?
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, we could probably do a whole other episode.
I just had to bring it up because the first time you used that word, I'm like, oh, let it go. Like, oh, but she said it again. I got it. Let's talk.
Yeah. No, it's like, it's a deep, deep, deep pulse in me, this whole healing idea.
Yes, me too.
For two reasons. One, I said it earlier that I feel particularly passionate about telling and championing stories about mothers and parenting and parenthood and all of that. I think a big part of healing is feeling seen and feeling like you're not alone. Being a mom for me, the first, year was really, really beautiful, but it was really hard because there was so much about it that I had no idea was coming. And the only thing that really, truly got me through those times was when I would talk to other moms who felt the same way, who could just talk real talk, and when I felt seen and reflected and not alone. Now, you don't always have the opportunity in the middle of the night or when you're home alone with your kid or whatever to get in touch with a friend or whatever. And so I feel like it's really important to create content, TV shows and films, plays, but TV shows and films because you can watch them anywhere.
Right.
Where these topics are brought up and dealt with so that moms, parents are seeing that. Not feeling alone is extremely, extremely important. And you could apply that to depression, bullying, God, every single issue that people deal with. I feel like if they see themselves reflected somewhere, then that is a great first step towards feeling like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yes.
How did that story unfold? How did that character handle it? It's so therapeutic.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like that that like encapsulates everything.
It's yeah. No, I hear you, and yeah, beautifully said. It's so true.
Wait, can I say one more thing about that? I thought about the other thing I wanted to say.
Absolutely.
So I think, and I think a lot of artists, especially right now, because it is so crazy in the world right now. Oh my God. And I think we are all feeling like, God, are we doing just frivolous, unimportant stuff? Like when you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, for example, and you're trying to raise funds for a movie, but meanwhile, there are, refugees who are, can't even feed their families, and there are all of these horrible things happening. So it feels hard to ask for money for something like a movie when there are other places where money is deeply, deeply needed. So I think, and I've had lots of conversation with other artist friends about how do we justify our existence in this kind of environment. And I think what we have to remember is the important role that performing arts, visual arts, has played forever throughout humanity to help people process some of what's going on.
Yes.
And processing can be about talking about what is actually happening in
Yep.
this moment, documentary, journalism, or, writing a narrative project that reflects what's happening right now. But it can also be about just taking a minute to give yourself a break. I
An
think that's
escape.
part of self-care. Go watch a movie that makes you laugh. Go make a movie that makes people laugh, because that is important. That's equally
Yes.
important, I think. And a healed heart is a compassionate heart and is an understanding and open heart. So if you need to go laugh and take a minute so that you can be more compassionate towards your neighbors, your children, your loved ones, and people who don't agree with you, then Godspeed. Go write that movie, go watch that movie, go do it, because we need more of that to get through this malarkey.
Oh my gosh, there's just so many things you said in there. I could just, oh my gosh. It is a crazy time, right, in this world, in this country particularly, and I think you really just hit the nail on the head when you talked about a healed heart is a compassionate heart, right? And I feel like there is there is so little compassion. It feels like in certain sectors of our society, and I think that is the core. There's people that are not healed, that have pain, that walk around with pain. So if you're one of these people, it's almost natural to share that pain with others or impinge pain on others because you yourself
Right.
are not healed. And I honestly think that is the core issue with this nation is we are not a healed nation. We need healing.
Yeah, and art has always been an important part of that. If you
Yes.
look, I am not a historian by any
Neither am
stretch,
I.
but
It's
but
okay.
I do feel like if you look back and you look at when large surges of important work has been made,
Yes.
writing, painting, all of it, it's during times of duress. And so sometimes, I mean, every day, you like turn on the TV and it's like an affront to the senses. It's just
It
like, oh my
really
God, there's
is.
so much horrible.
It's
I don't even
overwhelming.
know how to process it. So sometimes my silver lining is, holy hell, some good art is going to come out of this. Holy hell. Because that's what artists do. They take these horrible times and they try to
Makes sense.
contextualize it and make sense of it and heal. That's it is an important part of what we do, and we shouldn't forget that. We should not be dissuaded from the importance of our work.
I feel like I can talk with you all day. I know I can. You just hit you just had so many wonderful things that I just really resonate with, and I think a lot of our listeners too, because, here at Indie Film Tribe, that is sort of one of our main focuses is to create socially conscious content. But I love what you said about sometimes socially conscious content could also be a way for us to escape, a way for us to
Yeah.
laugh, so we can deal with what's happening in society, so we can heal, then turn and come back to our families, to our world, if you will, and, give a helping hand or be of service, or have something to give, that's
Yeah.
not, based in fear and wounds and pain.
Yeah, I mean, because it's everywhere. We are with it and actively involved in this situation every minute, and we need to put gas in the tank, like.
Oof.
And so socially conscious content can be, I think the definition of that can be, yes, a documentary or a piece that furthers a very specific message, but I feel like socially conscious content can also be something totally narrative that might not have a larger mission per
Right,
se,
right.
but does somehow offer you some kind of escape or healing or understanding or
Yes.
different perspective, expands
Yes.
your brain in some way. I really believe in the power of this. So I think socially conscious content can mean a lot of different things.
I agree. I agree. And that is so well said. Because, again, even to create, um, I guess, you know what? People create from different spaces, A lot of times, difficult times, like you said, amazing art can be born out of that. And
Yeah.
it's because people are not healed, and through their art, they can find healing and meaning and whatnot. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. One quick thing, and this kind of touches on what we're talking about right now, but also to your question about my writing process. I have found that when I'm working on it, like right now, I'm working on specific characters in my film and their story arcs and just making sure it works and is rich and full. And each time I've had to start on a new character, I have kind of put up a bit of a resistance, where I won't write for like 3 days, 4 days, and I just kind of throw roadblocks in my way. And it finally occurred to me that one of the reasons I've been doing that is because as you delve deeper into a character, you are having to delve deeper into yourself as well. Like for me, and I'm sure a lot of writers are like this, but for me specifically, when I'm working on a character, I have to tap into something within myself that is also within that character so that I can totally understand where they're coming from. And these characters are not going through savory experiences. So I'm having to tap into painful places, things I'm not so proud of about my personality, and having to sit with them for days. And I think through that there is healing too. As a writer, pushing through that, allowing yourself to be vulnerable with your character, and then processing that with your character. So it can be healing for the audience member, but it can be healing for the creator as well.
Absolutely. And I don't know the process of every writer, but I have a feeling, like you're like me, you're an actor as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know as
Yeah.
actors, naturally, when we, come upon a character, we inhibit that character. That's just what we do. So
Yeah.
obviously when we're writing, we do the exact same thing. So, and I know that's so true for myself. Sometimes I will put up roadblocks or feel blocked. And it's not because the writing's blocked. It's because I just don't want to go there right now.
Yes.
I'm in the mood to like, ugh.
Yeah, and you have to go there. You have to really go there. I think some writers, I wonder if it's easier to be a writer if you're not an actor.
I wonder that too. I have no idea. Do you just write as it's something outside of yourself and there's a character that you're just sort of looking at and observing, as opposed to an actor that gets inside the character and writes from that place and then out come the words?
Yeah, I have to believe it's probably easier not being an actor because you probably are thinking about it more strategically and just like, all right, I just got to get it done. Just like, okay, well, this character has to go here and here and here and here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think every writer is different, and if people are more right brain versus left brain, I think some writers really think structurally at first, and format wise, and how they're going to tell the story and the plot and all this kind of stuff. Whereas other people might lead with character, and who are these characters, and then the characters sort of inform the plot and the story.
Yeah,
I think there's kind of two ways, probably more than two ways to go about it. But I just know for me, like you, as an actor, I definitely, my writing is not just writing out here. It's from in here,
Yeah, totally.
It's from a different space. If people want to learn more about you, learn about your project, how can people find you, Claire?
Carbonthefilm.com is the film's website. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Most active on Instagram and Facebook. And then ClaireMcClanahan.com is my personal website.
You are just such a wealth of information and knowledge and wisdom. One last thing I wanted to touch upon, we sort of brushed over it, but you also mentioned that one of your passions is to just sort of be an advocate for women that are over 40 and entering the business. Will you speak on that for a moment? I know we've been on for a bit, but I just have to ask about this as well.
Well, my answer is going to be short simply because I feel like I'm at in the infancy of my advocacy.
Right.
I feel like to be a true advocate, I really do feel like I need to complete this film. Do you know what I mean? So that I'm not just someone who's like, well, I'd like to make a movie and I'm over 40. Follow me, I feel like I need to go through the full gestation process to really come from a place of authority. But as I do that, and as I put this team together, and as I think about casting, those decisions are certainly informed by my passion to give opportunities to women over 40 or just, over 35 even. I mean, in the business, 35 is already aged out of some stuff. So just anyone who's marginalized. So casting, staffing, all of that as I'm packaging, those decisions are made through that filter and consciously made, because I think if we're going to close this gender gap, if we're going to close this diversity gap, it has to be consciously done. So I am doing that. Moms in Film is an organization that I got to through friends of friends and have just started to communicate with and interact with. Once I'm through this film and I have a little bit more time, I hope to be more actively involved with them. But any chance I get, I'm talking about what they're doing, because they are really, they're only about a year or 2 old, but they've accomplished so much. It would blow your mind. And I think they are leading the way. So I'm hoping to just join their ranks. And then outside of Carbon, I'm working on a series that is all about mothers and is going to be staffed by mothers. It's going to be directed by mothers. And so that's coming next. Look out for Mother. It's going to be a goodie.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You're going to definitely have to come on and talk about that once you get that going. Oh my gosh, how exciting.
I have an incredible co-writer. She's a mother. There's some good stuff popping with that. So I can't wait to put some legs on that.
Do you have a date, a time for when you're going to shoot your feature?
My hope had been to shoot it this fall, sometime this year. I think based on just how we're tracking right now, we'll probably have our financing in place closer to the end of this year, which
Excellent.
would, we can't really shoot over the holidays.
Yeah,
so
no.
I think realistically, we're probably going to end up filming in January. I feel like that's a realistic goal. If we miss that, if we don't, if we're not solidly financed by late October, early November, then we'll push to the spring. So no matter what, this thing is going to be in post by spring. So
I can't wait.
I
can't wait. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Claire, for your time today. You're just so awesome, and I just really enjoyed our chat today. And thank you, Indie Film Tribe, for hanging out with Claire and I today. Until next time, bye.
Bye.